so let's say we're back, it's before React 16.8, so it's 2018. I have this question right here. Would this component work? Like, this is a functional component, and we don't have hooks, but is this component using hooks? The answer is no. So before hooks, we still had functional components, but we could only use them if we didn't have like state or things like component did mount. So use effect. So this one we could written as a functional component, because back in the day it's called like a dummy component or like a UI component, because there's no state. It was just rendered. It's just like a UI component, no state. But our contact form is going to have state, right? So we're going to have to keep track of the inputs. So yeah, we would want to use state, but we can't use that because we're doing a class component. That is another, sorry, now that we know classes, here's a rule of hooks. You can only use hooks in functional components. So we can't use state in a class component. It has to be a functional component. So let's see how we could do this with the form. So with our contact form, it looks like we have a name and a phone. So let's go build out just the form first. Let's do our form. Grab that from semantic. And do like a form.group widths. Just make these equal. Inside of here, we'll have a form input. And now let's just give it a label. Name. Let's make that capital because that's what it's going to be showing up as. So there's our label. And then let's also grab another one for our phone. There we go. And then let's go ahead and throw in a button. Yeah. Maybe throw that button out of that group. Okay. It's a little better. All right, so there's just our basic form. Nothing really special about this class component right now. But let's now do the state. So let's come in here and do our state. It's just an object, so we're going to want to have name. And then a phone. Okay. I'm just going to put some default values here so I can see, because I want to see that they're working. So what I can do here is in my input, I can, once again, I'm just going to do the value. This time it's going to be this dot state dot name for that label, or for that value, and this one's going to be this dot state dot phone. There we can see I have the default values there, X and Y. That's working. I don't really want those there. Okay, so now we need our on change. I'm just going to call this function this dot handle change. So this is definitely going to be a lot different because we don't have our setter that we can just call. We're going to have to create our own function. Sorry. Handle change. And if you remember, don't you remember it was like our function signature looked like this where we had the event and then we could like grab the value. That's the function we wanted to give that. And I'm going to make this an arrow function for sure. So I have this defined. I'm going to console.log. Actually, let's go ahead and just throw a debugger in here. So now if I come in here and click something, now I'm in my log. So I have the value, that's S. I also have this E, which is this systemic event. So I can go E.target. That grabs me the input. Then I can do E.target, right? Oh, I didn't throw a name in here. Okay, I don't have a name in here. That's something I want to throw. I'm going to want to give this input a name, which just happens to be, and the value just also happens to be name. I'm going to want to do this for the phone. I'm going to give this value the name phone. Now here's the trick here. I want to give these inputs the name, the value that it is in state. So I want to match this value with the key in state. I'm going to match phone with that value in state, the name of the key. Let me get out of that debugger. Let's type this again. So now my console, if I do event dot, let's grab this, event dot target. Now I have the name on there, dot name. Now what? And then if I click on the phone, e.target.name is going to be phone. That's what I called it. So I could do something like this, like if e.target.name, if that equals phone, let's say like this dot set state phone, and then I do have the value here, right? Value. Set that to value. I could also say e.target.value. That grabs me too, but I'll pull the value from that. Or else, well, if it's not that, then I'll set the state of the name. Get rid of that debugger. Hope I didn't save that. That's why that's not working. So I'm going to refresh that, get rid of that debugger. Cool. Now it's changing. Cool. So this might get a little messy though if we have a lot of fields though, right? I have to check if the name matches that. I have to do all those if statements. So let's do this. Let me show you a little demo. Actually, just going to step into Node. Okay, so this is I'm just going to do like a JavaScript example. So even though I'm calling this state is just, I'm just going to create in Node the state object. And I'm going to create a variable called name equals, let's do key equals phone, the string phone. So we saw we could access in JavaScript, I can dot into a object, state.name. Oh, that's blank. Let's give these some values. So I can do state.name. That's going to give me the name of the object, and I can do state.phone. I can also do state.string. I can do it by string, state.phone, by the name of the key. So yeah, let's say I have a variable, let's just call it X, but the value of X is the string phone. So now I can access an object with a variable. It's just a string, right? X is really just phone. And let's say e.target.value. I mean, I'm not going to use the dots because that's going to be a syntax error. But let's just say e.target.value equals phone. Well, then I could, do that. So what I can do up here is I can just get rid of all this nonsense. And I can do this dot set state. And there's a little shorthand. I can, instead of saying name, like this can either be name, or phone, right? If that's the case, if I want to use a variable, I can use this notation where I can use brackets and then pass it a variable. So if the key is going to be a variable like e.target.name, it could be name or phone, and set that to the value. Just refresh that. So there we go. That's working. Let me just kind of like, if I have this as name, see, this is only going to switch the name input. If I switch that to the string phone, that's what's happening here. That's going to set that one. But I'm going to use, instead of hard coding that string, because it could be either one, I'm going to use the string from the e.target.value. Oh, sorry, e.target.name. And there that works. So that's more of a ES6, or that's just a JavaScript syntax thing. Cool, so now we have our state set up. Now let's do our submit. Handle submit. Once again, arrow function here. Definitely want to do arrow functions for your event handlers. Let's just console.log this .state. So I have Jim123, I click add. Oh, I didn't actually throw it on here, on submit. Got to remember for this, I need to say this instance, then grab the handle submit function. Add, I click that. There's my contact. So now this is really no different. So now I want to we're not doing Axios right here, but here I could do my Axios call using backend, but we're not doing that. But the next thing I want to do is update my state. Update contact state. I.e. add the contact. Which this .state is really the contact that I want to add. But this goes back to where you were doing when you first started React. My contact state is in my app.js. So I want to add it to this array. But my contact form has that contact. So I just need to come in here and and do an add contact. Hey, this one's expecting to get a contact. Let's just console.log it just to make sure we're passing it. Contact. Well, now I need to pass this here. So there's my add contact prop name. That's going to be equal to this add contact. That's the function I just defined right there. And then in my contact form, where I want to add, now I can call this .props add contact. I'll pass it this .state. So that's my contact right there. If we're using Axios, then our Axios call would look something like this, let res equal Axios.get or put or post some URL, this .state. Okay, so I think that should do it. Let's see if we can log our user. That's 1, 2, 3. And get rid of this log. So we're clear that we're logging it from our app. And there we go. Cool. So now I go back to my app. This break. Okay, I feel like I just screwed up something up right there. So now I can go back to my app file. Let's kind of do the same normal thing that we do here where we add our contact, but instead I'm going to use this dot set state. I want to change my contacts. Do this all right here. Let's just take this dot state dot contacts. And let's go ahead and add the contact at the first. So take the contact that was given to us, this function, add it to that, create a new array right here, put that thing added, and then the copy of that old array, and then we'll set that new state. Calling set state will trigger this call, will trigger render. Does that make sense? I just want to make sure this is clear. Calling set state will trigger render. I can do like a test, PSF, add, and there's that. Let's say you did want to do a, like a component did mount, but we can't use the use effect, right? Because that's a hook. So how do you do a component did mount call? Going back to our lesson on like inheritance. So since we're extending from component, there's actually this component did mount call defined in our component class. And like this knows, so now our component knows about this component did mount. Mounted. See how I get that mounted when I refresh? It's going to say mounted. Also have a component did update. So like if I come in here and add a user, that's going to call that updated because my state's changing. So anytime my state change, this update function is going to be called. So this called, you know, on that first mount. This will be called state is changed. Or our component, like our component updates. So there's some life cycle methods. So I think I'll have like a bonus objective of like the homework hooking it up to like an API. So if you do want to do like an Axios call, you could, or like an async call, you could do it like this. How do I make this async? Oh, this one, if you want to make this async, you put it in front here. And then you can use the async await syntax. Working with the actual API is going to be a bonus objective though. So the standard requirements are just going to be working with dummy data. What else? Let's do a delete really quick. So here's our delete button. So this actually nothing would really change, or not too much would change here with our delete. Let's just do another example, delete contact. Maybe, oh, I don't have any IDs in here, do I? Oh, I do. Maybe something I should add here in my contact form. I want to add an ID. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy my state. I'm going to add an ID prop or an ID key on here. Just do math.random. So that would essentially just take these values. When I do dot, 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 it's just going to essentially spread those out right there. So I'm creating a new object with ID, name, and phone number. Because I want the ID. If I'm going to do the delete function, I'm going to want the ID. Let's take an ID. It's going to be something similar to this. Let's actually do this up here, like let filtered contacts. So I can do this dot state dot contacts dot filter. Go through each contact, does the contact ID that I'm looking at, as long as it does not match the ID. That was passed, let's keep it. Store that to this array, filtered contacts. And then I can say this dot set state contacts. Filter contacts. At this point, yeah, because if I'm doing it like this, this might be, I could try to do that in one line. It might be a little hard to read, kind of up to you. So I'm just going to So then just like I did with the contact form, but I'm going to do this in contacts. I'll throw this prop on down, this dot delete contact. And go into my contacts. On click this dot props dot delete contact. Now this one does need an ID, so I do need to wrap this in the anonymous function. That would be contact.id. Oh, except I'm destructuring props up here, so. Oh wait, this is a functional component, so. Keep that in mind. Just pull that off of props. So I don't want to use this dot props because it's not going to be this dot props is not going to be defined in a functional component. Delete. So now my delete's working. Okay. One other thing. Let's do. let's see here. I do want to do our update. So let's go ahead and do that. At least get the let's at least get our props passed down to our edit form. So for this, I could probably go ahead and throw this in its own contact component, but I'm just going to keep it here. So what I'm going to do is actually, this might happen because let's say I want to toggle this form. What do I need to toggle a form?
State.
I need state. And now all of a sudden it's like, crap, this is a functional component. I can't use hooks because that's part of the homework. So yeah, now it's like, oh crap, now I do need to put this into its own form or into its own component. Or I would need to make this a component. But I don't want to make my contacts a component because I want each cell to have that toggle form state. So I'm going to need to make a contact component because each contact should be able to toggle its own form. So the first thing I'm going to do is just not add any functionality. I just want to get this working where I render over all of this stuff. So I'm going to copy from this, everything inside of this map. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to replace this with a contact component that I don't have yet. Just spread down all of those props. So yeah, now contact's not defined. So let's go ahead and do that. Import contact, or sorry, import React from React. And this is going to be a class because this one's going to want to have state. Oh, sorry, extends React.component. Do our render function, which returns that JSX that I had copied. And then I just need to import table from semantic UI React and my button. And we need to export default contact. So I'm copy and pasting though some stuff from a functional component to a class component. So there's going to be some stuff that's broken, but let's get this error fixed. So let's import contact in our contacts. So we're getting some errors. I have a return spelled wrong. That's my first error. So contact's not defined and delete contact's not defined. Well, here I'm spreading out over this contact object, which is in a sense saying like name equals contact dot name, phone, etc. So what I want to do here is I'm now getting these from props. And this is a class, so it's this dot props dot ID. This one's going to be this dot props dot name. This one's going to be this dot props dot phone. So again, another one. So, and this will be this dot props dot ID. Cool. That's not working. Now my delete contact's not working. Well, I know I'm going to need to get that from props. So now it's rendering, but my delete's not working. Because this dot props delete contact's not a function. Because I'm not passing it down here anymore. So I can do it just like this. So I get the delete contact. Now I'm going to pass it down as a prop to my contact. Now my contact should have this dot props dot delete contact. Now that's working. So that was just the work to get it, just to move that component into its own little subclass or own component. So a good word of advice as you're like working on this, it might just be good practice to like create that component from the start and get it working. Especially if you have to like do something like you decide all of a sudden to like toggle the state or have some state. Now we can have some state on here, like our toggle form. So we can come in here and in our class, we can use state, show form. We'll default that to false. Cool. And then inside of here, how is this going to work in a table? This might look a little funky, but let's see what happens. Let's call this dot. We'll say this is update. So I'm going to add another button. So this toggle form function is not defined, so I need to come in here and define it. Toggle form. This dot set state. Go ahead and show form to be not this dot state dot show form. Let's do something like this. If I'm going to throw an if statement in my render, I'm going to say if this dot state. I'm not sure what this is going to look like since we're in a form. So if our show form is true, then I'm going to return our contact form. If it's not true, then we'll return the table row. So this might look a little weird, but let's try it. Update, it doesn't seem to be toggling.
I think it's because we need to put the form in it.
We need to put the form in what?
Some way to render the form and then have it actually toggle. Oh, you already have that. Sorry.
Yeah, it should be right here in my render. Let's try this. Let's set this to true. Was it not like that I'm trying to, am I not like that I'm trying to render a form? No, those are just warnings. Oh, if this dot set state, if this dot state dot show form. Okay, so there we go. So now that would show all of my forms. So let's go back to false on that. Update. This dot state. Wait, what? What is going on here? Let's set that to true. Just hard coding stuff to get this working. Okay. Next thing I might do is like, am I actually calling this function? Nope, I'm not. I have an arrow function. That's what's going on there. I had an arrow function. If I had an arrow function there, I'd need to call it. But I don't need to do that, so let's go update. There we go. Yay. Probably gonna want this button here on the form as well. So what I'm gonna do is wrap all of this in a fragment so I can throw the button in there as well. Well, let's have it say cancel. So update, cancel. Oh, and I'm hard coding that to true, so now I can go back to this, to not this dot state dot show form. Update, then I can hit cancel. Update, cancel. Well, now I just got to pass in my values. So I could really, I mean, I can come here and say name equals this dot props dot name. Or I could just spread out over this dot props and pass everything down to my form. Because that will then give me, that contact form will give me name, ID, and the phone. This might get messy. Okay, so now in my state, I'm going to set the name equal, hey, do we have this dot props dot name? Set it to this dot props dot name. If not, set it to an empty string. I forget if I can actually do this right here, if I'm going to have to do a constructor. That does work. Okay, so there's Jerry. There's George. So then I'm just going to have to do this for the phone as well. Did I get a phone prop? If so, use that. If not, use an empty string. So if I click update, there's all my values passed to that. And my new form does not have it either. And likewise, for something like my button, I could do this dot props dot ID question mark. If I have an ID, this is going to be update. If I don't, I want it to say like add. So now my button says add in that form, and it says update in my update forms. let's just finish this example. So the next thing I'd want to do is kind of update the state. So go to my app.js, do my update contact function. This is going to take a contact. Let's just do let updated contacts equal. Let's go through all of my contacts, which is this .state.contacts. That's where they live, is in my app. And this .state.contacts, and then let's map over them. Go through each contact, and then check to see, does the contact I'm iterating over, does the ID equal the ID of the contact that was edited? If it does, let's return the edited contact. If not, just return the contact or the thing we're iterating over. So that would update that would create that updated array. And then I need to do this .set state contacts to updated contacts. Spell contact around here. So that's just the function. Now I need to pass that to the form. So that is in my contacts. This update contact. Okay, so now my contacts is going to have an update contact prop. This one's a functional component, so let's just pull it right off there from props. Then let's pass that down to my contact component. Well, now my contact component has that prop. So then I can pass that down to the form. But that's going to be equal to pull it from props, I got to go this .props update contact. Sweet. Now we finally have that in my contact form. So I could do a check like this. If this .props.id, if we have the ID, then I'm going to want to call that function. Else we can call this function. The update contact, that is undefined. So I need to do this .update, this .props, update contact. Doesn't like what I did in contact form. So let's go to update, and Jerry, update, hit cancel. I'm not toggling my UI automatically, but if I hit cancel, it is not there. Well, probably because I'm not passing it an ID. So I'm just passing it this .state. Since we're not using the database, I do want to include the ID. Because this one actually does have an ID. And then I can spread out over the new form data. Let's try that again. Jerry, update, cancel. Oh, Jerry's been updated. Something we might want to do on both of our forms once it's complete is just clear out our state. This way, when I create a new contact and click add, it will clear out that state. Let's see, those are contexts. But yeah, that's a lot, but that's CRUD actions. It's very similar. I mean, it's actually kind of the exact same, but as far as like the overall logic, but then it's just, you got to keep track of like, well, is this a class component or a functional component? I'm no longer getting props from my param and my function. I'm getting it from this dot props. That's the demo. Questions on that? I'm going to push this up. You want to try like a little bonus objective, try to get this toggle form. So when you click update, that it toggles the form. I do believe it's possible. You just have to like pass this function on down. Or could you, yeah, to the contact form. Let's just do that really quick. Let's just see if this works. Toggle form. This dot toggle form. And then in our contact form, well, I know if it's an update, I should have this dot props dot toggle. Ooh, questions? You good? That should be up on master. Stop recording.